Is it any different? A conversation on being a disabled mother on 13th May 2021, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Our panelists were Jeeja Ghosh, disability and gender rights activist; Elizabeth Roche, poet and mother; Anandi Vishwanathan, author and communications coach. Rising Flame logo on the bottom left side.
We've started the recording. I would like to officially welcome all of you to Rising Flames event this evening called Is It Any Different? We have an extended celebration of Mother's Day. This Sunday, when the world celebrated Mother's Day and was talking about the experiences of mothers and the experiences of having a mother, of being a mother, uh, really the journey and lauding some of the journeys that mothers have taken, the negotiations that they make in their life, the way they navigate life and their families and their children. We just thought that it was very interesting for us to think about and to bring this discussion um, in the open domain, to spotlight the discussion and the experiences of mothers with disabilities and diversities, and to think about what diversity means, what disability means when you're a mother, and what this word motherhood means, right? It's very interesting because globally we speak about super moms, and feminist circles, we have an issue with the term of super moms. We somehow expect mothers to never be tired, mothers to never quote unquote fail at anything, mothers to have some superpowers, which proves that they have no limitations, that they don't need help, that they're all by themselves, but they can achieve everything. They can do everything for their child, for their families. It couldn't be far from the truth. And when we thought this idea of super achievers and super mom and super inspiring, and when all such inspirational pieces came into play, we sat back and said, those are some of the words that are used very commonly for disabled people. You're super inspiring if you did something ordinary. But why is this extraordinary expected then from mothers? And if we bring disability and motherhood together, what are then the experiences of disabled mothers? Are they any different? Are they the same? What are the joys? What are the sorrows? What are the pressures? What is the experience? And particularly towards the end, to look back into the past year, which has been extremely difficult for all of us here, everybody around the globe, um, and just taken so much from each of us. The meaning of care has changed, the meaning of relationships have changed. And what happens in this environment when you're a mother and a mother living with a disability? I'll come up with a few examples, which, of incidents which have come up off and on around what being a mother means, and what are the expectations. But without any further ado, I, as the founder and executive director of Rising Flame, would like to welcome the Rising Flame team. Although it's our event, I would still like to formally welcome my team and say thank you so much for being here and helping us in or putting this event together and having a fantastic lineup of speakers. Um, it's very important for us to listen and listen for the next couple of minutes or the next hour or so. And then we will have an opportunity to ask questions. Questions that could be easy, questions that could be curious, questions that could be tough, but questions that would help us reflect and probably change maybe broader mainstream narratives that we may harbor around mothers and mothers with a disability. For everyone who has joined, we have a sign language interpreter right here on your screen. I am Nidhi Goyal. I am your host for this evening. I am from Rising Flame, and for all my blind friends, audiences, speakers, and participants here, I would also request my speakers to do the same. Just to do a quick audio description, I'm a woman in my mid-30s, from India. I don't know how to describe an Indian looking face, with hair tied back, with headphones on my head, a multicolored top, and some lipstick with some chains on me. Just a quick audio descriptions that we are, trying to create an experience, an inclusive experience of a webinar for everyone. I'm blind, so I'm guessing that the 4 videos have been spotlighted, or 5 videos rather, which is of the Shabina, the sign language interpreter, who's visible on the screen. Shabina, can I please ask you to say something for our blind friends so that they can also hear you?
Hello everyone. Good evening. My name is Shabina and I'm a sign language interpreter for today. Thank you for having me here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shabina. So Shabina's video is spotlighted. And then I will take a minute to introduce our 3 speakers, and I would request them temporarily to turn on their videos and audio. I'll keep the introduction really brief because what we want to do is hear from you on your experiences more than anything else. So I would really like to welcome Anu Elizabeth Roche. Anu, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Please feel free to correct me. Anu, great. Anu is a poet and a mother, and we're very, very glad to have you here today. Anu's going to do something special for us. We're going to start with a performance, Anu's poetry performance, slam poetry, and then Anu will take us through her experiences and how they were different and unique, but similar, full of highs and lows, ups and downs, warmth and fear. Anu, welcome to this evening's event. I'm just going to quickly, if you want to just say hello to everyone, sorry.
Okay, I'll give my audio descriptor first, as you would said.
Yes, please.
I'm Anu Roche, 35-year-old Indian woman. I have brown skin, long hair, and a black kurta with red and cream design.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Anu. That's the best. I'm going to introduce each of you and you all would just do an audio, quick audio description.
This is the first time I've given an audio descriptor before.
Great. So I'd like to also welcome our next speaker, Jeeja Ghosh. I don't know, Jeeja, I feel very odd to introduce you. I feel like most of the people know you, and so it's true for other speakers as well. But Jeeja is a dear friend and disability rights activist, and I've learned a lot from Jeeja. Jeeja is right here with us and will be sharing her experiences of what this journey of motherhood has meant for Jeeja and what it has brought in her life. And it's so amazing to see you here, because we generally are advocating on one policy or the other, Jeeja, together. So going through your personal journey is always a pleasure and an honor. Jeeja, if you can say hello and describe yourself, and then we'll request Trinity from Rising Flame to support with interpretation.
Hello, I am Jeeja. I live in India. I have short hair. I wear glasses, and now I'm wearing black t-shirt.
Hi, I am Jeeja. I live in India. I have short hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeeja, and welcome to this event. Anandi, Vishwanathan, again, a friend and first time we're on the same panel, and so excited to have you here, Anandi. Anandi is an author and a communication coach. And I would request you, Anandi, to say hello, add anything to your introduction if you wanted, and please audio describe yourself.
Thank you, Nidhi. So I'm Anandi. I'm from Bangalore. So like Nidhi said, the first time I'm here with her on the same panel. So I am wearing a white kurta with print patterns on it, and that's very that. And I hope I look like I'm still in my 30s. Thank you.
That was a cheap description, for sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Anandi. Thanks to all 3 of you, and the way we're just walking everyone through the event. Anu will take us through her performances and address us, share the inspiration behind her poem, the journey. Since then, since before when she wrote the poem that she's going to narrate now, but also what happened when she had her baby and what that journey meant for her. So after we hear Anu's very, very interesting and captivating journey, we also will move to having a conversation with Jeeja and Anandi. And then we'll open it up for Q&A for all three speakers. We're hoping to wrap up the event in an hour and a half. We've tried our best to provide accommodations and make this webinar accessible. If there's any other support, please message one of the team members. So we have Shinadi here. Shinadi, have you renamed yourself in the participant list? And there's Chenika, and there's Saima and Tejaswi. These are just identifying for everyone. Shinadi, Chenika, Saima, Tejaswi. These are Rising Flame team members. And if you face any issues, we're really hoping that you would write to them. We are also requesting all of you who have your device names. It'll be nice to have your own name there because it feels a little insecure for everybody else if we have random devices attending the webinar. On this note, we're very, very excited to start the conversation. And over to you, Anu. I think since I heard your poem for the first time, it really stayed with me, and I'm very excited that we have this opportunity that others can hear you today.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start with a spoken word piece of mine. I'd written it when I was 4 months pregnant, which is why it's called Avocado Baby, because they say that when you're 4 months pregnant, then the fetus is the size of an avocado. So this is the piece. Your father and I change your name every week. And today is the last day you will be called Avocado Baby. We name you after fruits. We hold each one in turns, test their weight on our palms, tell each other this is the size you must be now. Tell each other a revolution is taking form in 100 wombs just like mine, that change is the only constant. We never realized what change meant until you. The last time I saw you on an ultrasound, you finally had hands and legs. You kicked with the excitement of a creature who wanted to know what that limb was for. You wouldn't stop curling and uncurling your fingers. I've never seen someone look so fascinated by what their body could do. Baby, how does it feel to reside in a body that has borne so much hate from the woman who called it her own? This is a body that has faced abuse of the worst kind from the person who should have loved it the most. I'm guilty of rejecting everything it has ever told me. I learned to call myself ugly before anybody else would. Eventually, my body began to believe everything I said. I taught it to stay silent and then blamed it for freezing every time someone touched me in a way that I didn't want to be touched. For that, it has been punished 10 times over. I've made it sustain bruises and prodded each one multiple times just to test how much pain it could take. I've called it lazy, weak, effective. I've pushed my body to suffer more, and never once listened when it screamed for me to stop. But this body of mine, it's a fighter. And when it hit back, I should have been proud. Today, I depend on this very part of me to help me find what you need. Until the day I feel your movements in my belly, I will look to it for guidance. I will read its signs. I will run my hands over my naked skin in wonder and realize I have never once said thank you. Avocado baby, I cannot teach you something you already know. But at the very least, I can make sure you never forget the love you gave yourself in my womb. There are still mornings I wake up hating everything about me. Enough to wonder if you will decide one day that this body is not worthy to be called your home and leave. I'm sorry, darling. This love stuff, it takes time.
Yeah.
But if you do leave, I want you to know this. Know that you have already achieved the impossible. Know that you have made me make peace with the one thing I will carry to my grave when I die. Yeah. Okay, so this, as I said earlier, this was written when I was 4 months pregnant. And it was a time of very conflicting emotions for me, because on the one hand, I had, I was very happy, I was very excited, I was anticipating this child. On the other hand, I was confused, and I was, I had to deal with a lot of, as you've seen in the poem, a lot of shame towards my body and a lot of self-hatred. For a very long time, basically from childhood, I'd been dealing with childhood trauma. And often the way that childhood trauma came out was through, hatred towards my body, shame towards my body. So having to deal with the fact that this was a body that I was not comfortable in, that I was to some extent maybe ashamed of. On one hand, that, and on the other hand, this was the same body that was nourishing and nurturing this child that I was growing to love. So it was a very confusing period of time. And my entire pregnancy was filled with a lot of these conflicting emotions. I didn't know how to connect the two. It became even harder, unfortunately, after I delivered my child. After I delivered her, I went into labor 1 month early. And while the labor itself, the delivery itself was not exactly very eventful. It was quite uneventful. I gave birth to her in 4 hours, and not much happened. But it was a very traumatizing experience for me, because the medical staff that were in charge of my treatment were very, very hostile, and I did not feel at all safe in that place. So coming out of that experience was traumatizing, and I was re-triggered in a sense. Like a lot of the childhood trauma that I'd had, which informed the shame I had in my body, kind of resurfaced. It kind of came crashing back, and it came at a time when I also had to take care of this newborn who was helpless and who was basically depending completely on me. So for at least the first few months, I was dealing with the fact that I wanted desperately to bond with this child, and I found that I couldn't. I was finding it very difficult to bond with her, with my daughter, Veronica. And I was feeling ashamed of myself. I was feeling shame in myself again, because I wasn't able to be what I was expected to be. I wasn't able to be the kind of mother that literally everybody was expecting me to be. And I didn't know how to grapple with that fact that I wasn't equipped at that moment. And I remember during that time, during the first few months, I was staying with my parents, which meant that at that time I didn't have the kind of support that would have sort of helped me through that experience. Because my parents were of the view that, look, you should be grateful that your child is healthy, your child is happy. Okay, that's what should matter. All of this you can keep in the back burner. How you feel, what you're going through, that can come later. You need to focus on this kid now. And while I tried doing that, it didn't help, because I was feeling more and more distant from this child. I was feeling more and more unequipped to be the kind of mother I thought I was supposed to be for her. And it was extremely, it was extremely difficult to come out of that and to finally get to the point where I could bond with her. My husband kind of helped me out of that in a sense, because he was one of the only people who said, you know what, you need to look after yourself. You need to look after yourself first. You need to, sort of, you need to give yourself that space to validate what you're going through, validate how you're feeling, and work through it. Not put it on the back burner, and not pretend that it's okay, when you're actually not okay. And it took me a few years to actually go to actually work through that, and to get to the point where I could make sense of that experience in my life, and actually begin to bond more with her and let go of that shame, let go of like mixed emotions like shame and anger and frustration, and feeling probably that I wasn't that I was a failure. So it took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of hard work on myself, hard work trying to make sense of what I went through before I could get to that space. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anu, for sharing such a deeply personal journey. And I think it takes it takes some strength, or a lot of strength, to open up, be vulnerable, really to share your journey, so that, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. I think the dismissal of trauma, of mental health support, the dismissal of an experience that you may have when the larger world thinks that you should be grateful for another, things that are grander than you, quote unquote. I think that very often happens, and that's a very normative framework that we live in. So when you don't fall within that normative framework, it's always challenged. And motherhood and being a mother is so, there's almost a blueprint, right? That if you're a mother, you're all giving, you will never need support, you always need to prioritize your baby. I don't know, you're the super champ, right? You're not just a super mom, you have ideas for everything, you have solutions for everything, you have answers for everything, and you just need to put yourself on the back burner. You need to sacrifice, compromise. I don't know how many more loaded words are connected with being a mother. So I think it's so important for us to hear this experience and to really have this moment of pause and reflection. I'm just going to pause here, since we're deep in conversation with Anu and we've heard a deeply personal narrative. If somebody has any questions for Anu immediately, or thoughts, we'd really welcome that. If any of you have, please feel free to just unmute yourselves.
Before that, I saw one question asking how old Veronica is. She's going to be 6 in August. Sorry, go ahead.
That's great. No, great, Anu. If you can look at, if there are any more questions, please just look at them and answer. It might be quicker than me trying to browse through the questions. But if anyone has, even our even if the speakers or the team or anybody in the audience has any question for Anu, otherwise Anu is here and we'll come circle back. But I just thought this might be a great moment if someone has something burning to say.
Hi, I just wanted to
Yeah.
flag one thing before questions. Sorry to interrupt. The sign language
Yes.
interpreter has fallen off, so we're just waiting. I mean, I'm just waiting for her to rejoin, but we can continue. If anybody needs accommodation, if you could just type it in the chat box till she comes. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Geetika, and I could very well connect with what she was saying. Like she felt distant with the baby when she gave birth to it. I'm also visually impaired, and I actually did not know what was going on with it with me at that point of time, and I thought was something was wrong with me, and I was making myself bear all the things, and the same was the case with me. Was everybody was more thinking about the baby instead of me. So and actually I was going through postmortem depression, and I had not heard of that term, and then I discussed it with my sister, and then she told me that it's something like most postmortem depression that you might be going through, because I would be crying every day and be, wanting to feel, you know, I'll think I'm not capacitated enough. So I think, and then later years of my life, because nobody kind of understood me at that point of time except my husband, just like her. So I think that way we are, very blessed to have people around us. But I think it's very important especially for women with disabilities. I saw in a research that they have postmortem depression. I think 10 to 20% more because of these reasons, and to prepare women with disabilities who may face such a situation, and have people around them who can understand them, because we had our husbands, but there are many women who may not be able to understand that what's going around with such women,
Right.
and something is wrong with them. So that, I think, becomes very important.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think access to information and to empathy of diverse experiences is extremely important for women in general and women with disabilities and diversities in particular. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Sure.
Can I? I have something to say.
Yes,
This is
please.
Bhanupriya.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Rising Flame, for doing this. I'm on the other side of the dialogue, like growing up as a daughter who has a mother with disability, and constantly grappling with, oh, why I had to, I was not given the kind of attention I needed, and in therapy, reflecting how I have somewhere uh, uh, um, uh, like taken on that trauma of feeling unworthy as a potential mother, and like now that I think about whether I'm capable of being a mother, even dealing with mental illness at my uh, yeah, at a personal level, and then imagining my life the way it was, uh, you know how it was for me, for my mother, at least how I saw it. Yeah, this was the, like, the first of its kind, I think, that this topic is being discussed, and thank you so much. It's much needed, also for mothers to be, women who are thinking that we may not be capable enough. uh, yeah, it's some uh, perspective on how it can be less difficult to go through that journey. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Bhanupriya, for really, the idea of having this webinar was precisely this, to open up dialogues, to really share things honestly from the heart, and to come here and say, not just be vulnerable, but also reflect on what being a capable enough mother looks like, what being a quote unquote good mother looks like. Why is this quote unquote super mom expectation from a woman? And what these pressures, child before you kind of pressure, does to a person or a woman's identity. I think these questions are some questions that we want to take forward. We also want to talk about innovations, right? So we don't only want to, and you will see in the conversation going forward, how innovations around being a mother work, and how, and I'm using the word again, but normative frameworks force us to believe that we're not worthy, have a lot of negative chatter and internalized behaviors and stigma or apprehensions and fears. And a lot of it is externally influenced. So we'll have some of this and a mix and more, but I'll come back to Anu to say, Anu, do you want to reflect a little on both the comments that have been given, and then we'll move on to our conversation with Jeeja and then Anandi.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, I think, thank you so much to all the people who, sort of responded, because it is very hard to, it's very hard to talk about this, because very often we don't even get to talk about it. It's not something that we're supposed to be vocalizing in some this thing. So, of course, that's going to leave a lot of people, a lot of mothers with the feeling that, okay, maybe I'm the only person going through this. And that's not true. Very often, there are so many of us who are going through this, thinking we're alone, thinking nobody else is going through this. So this must be this must be something, that I'm either, this must be something that I either don't have the right to talk, to feel, or maybe I shouldn't take this seriously. But it is something that a lot of people go through, and the more we talk about it, the more we do that, the more we break the kind of stigma around that. So then, I think I think then it becomes a lot healthier for us to view motherhood as this as something that involves a lot of growing, involves sometimes a complicated process, involves a lot of conflicting emotions, and basically it comes down to what kind of support do we have, and how do we figure out ways to, how do we process this? What are the ways in which we can process this without harming ourselves or our kids? It really comes down to that. And I remember telling somebody long back that the more you validate yourself, the more you are, the more you are setting an example for that child as well, because they'll be able to view, processing their emotions as healthy through seeing, their parent do that. So I'm really happy we're having this kind of conversation, because the more we talk about this, the healthier I believe we become.
Right. Thank you so much, Anu. On that note, speaking about diversities and diverse experiences, I would like to go to Jeeja and Ashwini for her support as well, for interpretation. Jeeja, it's so interesting because when we talk about a mother and you look at advertisements, there is a very, I don't know, it's a patriarchal, colonial, I don't even know what to call it, right? There's an imagery, there's a popular imagery around being a mother. Always, in advertisements, you're cooking something nice, you're packing bags, you're washing clothes. There's something or the other happening, whether the mother does, right? And she absolutely knows what to do with dirty, mud-stained clothes. I don't know if we should call them mother or miracles, but like everything, nothing's impossible. And that's when in this world, that's the kind of imagery that's drawn around mothers. I just wanted to understand from your experience, what's really been. So first, let's start with something that a common person would have a question around. Can you share, the joy of being a mother, or it's not a joy, or does it differ from other mothers? Because when you say disability, we are supposed to be different in all aspects. So just wanted to come to you with that simple question of, can you share what have been the different joys of being a mother, and have they been different at all?
So for me, it was a mixed feeling because when I adopted my daughter, I had lot of issues from the adoption committee, and my whole competency to be a mother was in question. How would I look after the child? How would I communicate with the child? All these issues came into question.
One second, Jeeja. Can I translate before you proceed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You just stop me.
Oh, okay. I'll do that next time. For me, it was a mixed emotion of being a mother, because I had a lot of difficulties I faced a lot of difficulties from the adoption agency and the community as well. There were a lot of questions that came to my mind while I was trying to adopt. One of them was, how would I communicate with the child? How would I lift up the child? And these things were part of what I thought before I was able to adopt.
Please continue.
When we got her home, it was, I think, like all mothers, we were very happy, and she was 5 months old. She was a happy child, very active child. So I think in that way, it was not very different from other mothers.
Should I go ahead, Jeeja? Yeah.
Yeah.
When we brought her home, she was a very active child, and she was very playful. So in that case, it actually was not very different from other mothers.
Very happy child also.
Yeah, she was a very happy and playful child. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jeeja, sorry, please go ahead, Jeeja. Sorry. Just in your answer, because you started addressing, Jeeja, that some of the questions that came to you, if you can also wrap what were the concerns that others had. As you mentioned that there were concerns. So while you're responding, if you also add what kind of stigma you faced, right? Like, and I'm using the word stigma deliberately because like misconceptions, questions which are not based on any knowledge or information. So really, what were those kinds of things as well? If you can add to your response, that would be great.
The first barrier. I would say I faced from the adoption agency, and they told me how would I communicate with the child, and being an activist, I wanted to answer them back, but I couldn't. And that angered me a lot. And I had to approach the central adoption agency. They support me a lot. And finally, all the things were sorted out.
Yeah. A lot of the questions that I received were actually primarily from the adoption agency with regards to how will I be able to handle the child and communicate with the child. As an activist, I really wanted to be able to respond to them and stand up, but I also knew that it was a difficult position to be in. Though finally, with support from other people, I was able to sort a lot of the problems out, and we were able to adopt our child. Did I miss anything, Jeeja?
Yeah. The agency, the Central Adoption Agency was really supportive. Jeeja said I had to go to the agency, and then the agency really was supportive and heard her out. Is that correct, Jeeja? Please add if you've missed anything.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Jeeja, so just to also tell us very practically, so when you say the committee and once you cross that and then the agency was the supportive and they heard you, you know, it's also interesting because then we have an entire ecosystem in which you operate, right? It starts from home, it starts from relatives, it starts from people in your society, wherever you're living, your neighbors, it starts from friends, it starts from schools, everywhere. So, experiences or judgments or any of the barriers, let's put it as barriers, right? That you had to cross being a disabled mother specifically. So mothers have to anyway navigate through a lot of barriers. But just being a disabled mother, and barrier is not she being really playful and being naughty. But what were the barriers, and then what innovations did you use around the same questions that you had, right? Around how did you sort of find your own space of being a mother when the questions of communication probably were in your mind and heart still, or caring were in your mind and heart? So what did all of that look like, the barriers and the innovations?
I will break it up into two parts. One is the actual physical, like caregiving, and one is attitudinal. I always have to depend on the caregiver to look after my child. And that somewhere didn't make me feel too happy, but I have no other option. As for my bonding with my child, now we have a good bonding. Oh, she is now 3 years old, and she in her own way had understood that Mama has some difficulties. So,
Jeeja, pause.
Yeah.
Jeeja, pause. Let Shanati speak.
yeah.
I'm going to try to remember all the salient points that you said, Jeeja. Just that there was one part of being a parent was the physical aspect of caregiving, the ability to caregive to her, and the other is the attitudinal aspects around caregiving, which were in many ways often sometimes I had to lean on other people for support for the physical aspects of caregiving. But when it came to bonding with my child, one of the things that I have seen is that she has always known that my mother has some difficulties, and she has been able to bond with me. Did I miss anything, Jeeja?
No.
Brilliant. Sorry, I'm not being rude to Shanati. There was an important statement which I just want to say. Jeeja says that I didn't always like it, but it was sometimes necessary. When Jeeja, you spoke about um, having to seek support from others, right? And I've seen you, and I think you're so comfortable taking support where you have to. There is no sense of shame or guilt, but it's also very interesting how when it's about being a mother and caregiving is so ingrained in us that we somehow are made to feel uncomfortable when we're asking for support from someone else for our child, right? So really, again, just want to bring that point that you mentioned, and thank you for the vulnerability and the impact that the whole mainstream narrative has on each of us in different ways.
And one amazing thing I found is my daughter understands every word that I say. So
Right.
from the very beginning, she understands every word that I say.
Yes.
One of the amazing things that I have found is that my daughter understands every word that I say. From the very beginning, she has understood every single word I have said.
No, the attitude and the were very forward. People didn't tell, tell me directly on my face, but it I was made to feel that I am an inadequate mother.
With regards to the attitudinal aspect for it, or of being a mother, many a times by others, I was made to feel like I was an ineffective mother.
Like decision about my child often they they took the decision of what my husband and I we always take decision together. But some of his family have a very negative and sometimes hostile attitude.
Um, I think that my husband and I, we made all our decisions together, but often other people in his family came with a different attitude and were often hostile. Was that correct, Jeeja?
Yeah. Latest thing that when somebody gets a gift for the child given to the mother, but this relative, she doesn't do it even now. She will give it to our caregiver and tell her what to do, what not to do.
Right.
This relative, often when children receive presents, they are given to the mother. But this relative in particular would give the gift to the caregiver and talk and inform them or talk to them about what needs to be done or what shouldn't be done with that gift.
Which I feel insulted, but to maintain the peace, I usually don't say much.
Right.
And I felt insulted, but in order to maintain peace, I have not said much.
Teacher, can I
Yeah.
pause you here? And
Yeah.
I just feel it's just to also draw parallels to our lives and the experiences that you're seeing, right? I'm a disabled woman. I'm not a disabled mother, and it's an incredible honor for me, and a little out of place for me, because when we say nothing about us without us, technically a disabled mother should be hosting this. But considering the times and the challenges and finding everyone safe and being able and having the mind space to host an event like this, we just took it up internally. I just still want to draw some parallels, that decision making is often stripped from us, right? As disabled people, it's always believed that we cannot decide for ourselves, and I think they've extended the kind of treatment that you've received is that extension of this kind of mindset of you're not capable to take your decisions. You're certainly not capable to take decisions for someone who depends on you. Um, and I think from your experience, I also want to flag and highlight one or two points, and I'll circle back to you after we've had a brief chat with Anandi as well on some of your recent experiences of how it has been to have a playful and fun-loving child around you, who people thought you would have a communication issue with, right? And you've mentioned that she always understood, and we always see that that's with a lot of times children are more open than adults, and they're flexible. They're like, okay, my mother cannot see, my mother cannot speak, my mother cannot dance, my mother cannot this, but so what? I don't focus on that because my mother does XYZ. And I think that's the image that children hold, and it's complicated yet very simple. But also this idea of having a caregiver, right? So very often when a woman can afford to have a caregiver, she's seen as a okay, she must be earning well, she must be in a very sorted place, she must be a busy woman, she must be an achieved, professional woman, and so she doesn't have time, and there's a caregiver for her baby. But very often when disabled mothers have caregivers, it's often seen as they're incapable, and so it's just the same how can I even call it, the same situation is viewed very differently because we immediately put a disability lens on it. and everything then becomes about the disability rather than, oh, Jeeja is a professional, Jeeja is an activist. Every month, Jeeja has 3 trips. And so, anyway, Jeeja would need a caregiver for her child, right? So, it instead of having that kind of lens, it immediately shifts to, oh, there's a disability, which means through the medical and charity model, there's a lack, which means that it's your fault. So it's somehow this whole sort of game of stripping a disabled person of the agency, autonomy, and adding the layers of guilt and shame and self doubt, right? I think all of us have internalized stigma in different ways in different periods of life and gone through this journey of empowerment and are still going through. So, thank you, Jeeja, for sharing this. I'm just going to pause here to move to Anandi, and we'll be back with some of your more innovative and positive experiences around, or how it has been in the times of COVID. And you have to be honest. Every mother's saying we've gone like it's too much, we cannot take it. So I don't think you should be politically right and say, okay, it was all good. So just moving on to Anandi. Mm, Anandi, again coming to you with a very similar set of questions around what if, have there been joys of being a mother? Has it been different from, the non-disabled mothers that you may have seen around, or portrayals that you may have seen? And then what have been some of the stigma and barriers and your innovations around those spaces? And I can also, when you pause, repeat those questions, but just to take you through a structure.
So, Nidhi, yeah, that's true. I mean, so for me, motherhood was something that I was really looking forward to. It was something that I'd been planning, like that I would be a mother sometime in the future was something that I had planned quite some time. Like when I was, planning my marriage or something, I was thinking of that as well. And at that point, like because we have already been through a lot of people telling us what you can do and can't do even when we are following a profession, when we're trying to carve out a career. These are the questions that we always face. Oh, being a blind person, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, these are the questions that these things that people always said to us. So even when it was similar, I mean, I would draw a parallel between that and planning a baby and planning to be a mother was, I mean, the similar kind of things were also said to me back then. Like, how would you care for a baby? Like, because this is going to be like a tiny little thing and it wouldn't be able to do anything for itself. And how are you going to look after the baby? What, like those kinds of things. And also it's like, you might feel so left out. This was something really strange. Like many people came up and told me like, you might feel left out because um, you wouldn't be able to see your baby smile at you, or you wouldn't be able to see your baby laugh. You wouldn't be able to see those expressions. And that is something that really is very fulfilling for a mother, to look at her baby. And not being able to look at your baby might actually make you feel sad. And do you really want to go through that kind of sadness? And similar, and so on and so forth, so many things were said. Okay.
Okay.
But what really happened was, like, somewhere at the back of my mind and my heart, I knew like it is, it's more or less like what people say: how are you going to catch a train? How are you going to catch your bus? What if you get, you miss your bus? What if your bus has, breaks down in between? And we have been, as professionals and as people living with a disability, we have been through these situations, and somewhere we have been able to resolve these issues. We haven't kind of we're still not stranded where one bus broke down or something, right? We have moved on from there. So I knew at the back of my mind somewhere, like, I am going to be able to find a solution to whatever the problem may be. And I didn't want to listen to all the detractions, and I didn't want to listen to all the negativities and things. So I thought, this is something that I want to experience. I always wanted to experience. And so I'm going to, like, do it. And if required, we'll find solutions to whatever problems that arise. And that's how we made the choice of having a baby. And it's been one of the best decisions in my life. One of the most fulfilling, most happy decisions that I've ever made. Because a child changes your whole world, and it really does. It kind of gives a new perspective to everything that you do, and it's the most joyous experience to have.
Right, 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 right. I think this is a You've really wrapped it up in one sentence where you said that we will figure it out. We found solutions in the past, and it's not been a new experience that people tell us some things to deter us, to make us, detract from our goals or what we want to achieve, etc. So taking just being a mother in the same stride or with sort of same energy has been really important. So thank you for that, Anandi. Just to also say that just with your partner, your family, friends, again, the immediate circle, a lot of the ecosystem or a lot of the environment around us influences us, right? And sometimes the influence is positive, sometimes the influence is full of barriers. But we also, with this attitude, find innovations. So can you also outline some barriers which, you outlined some of the things that didn't stay with you, but were there any things, any sort of statements, any pieces that sort of brought a moment of pause, or where you sat down and said, maybe, I don't know, or were really painful because you really wanted some close people to understand? And then how did you innovate? All these questions about being a disabled mother, or just an experience, right, of being a disabled mother. How did you then, what were the solutions that you thought of?
Yeah, I mean, my husband and I have been living, I mean, we live by ourselves. We don't have like a family staying with us. So it was like from the beginning, it was just the two of us looking after the little one. So there were a lot of things that I had to learn to do on my own because he would be working for most of the day. So I was alone looking after the baby. And I chose that it should be that way. I chose that I should be the one to look after her because I wanted to have the entire experience of looking after the baby. So I chose to do that, and so there were a lot of things. I mean, of course, these things people told me before. Like how would you know when the baby starts moving about the house? How would you know where the baby is? Or like when the child starts, if she puts something in her mouth. Like how would you know what that she's put something in her mouth? Or so many questions. And so we had to innovate. These things were practical issues that we did face. So what we did was like once we know, I mean, she started moving, and she was a very active baby, so she used to be like all the time moving around. And so what we did was one simple thing was to we put piles on her feet. Okay. And they were like these very noisy piles, and she really loved it because it like they would jingle jingle all the way. And so she was very happy with her piles. And it was also very helpful for us because she was, every tiny movement would be like kind of conveyed to me by sound. So I would know, like where she is, which part of the house she is in, and that was really helpful because I knew like because in my house everything is kept in, each object has its own place. So if I know that if she's in this particular corner, this is what she's looking at, or this is what she's probably trying to reach to or something. But then I also knew how tall she was, so I was able to like for a long time we were able to save a lot of things or save ourselves a lot of trouble by putting things at a height that she couldn't reach. So she was just moving about the house and just playing with her toys. But when she kind of was able to reach up and started taking things, so then I would, by the time, like I had already started this thing of I would talk to her like constantly, kind of keep talking to her while I would do the thing, work around the house, or even I would be working, or like generally chatting with her. And she had developed this habit of chatting back to me. So I would be listening to her sounds as well. So if there would be a change in that sound, then I know that something has gone inside the mouth. And then I would go up and, like just check whether what she's keep holding in her hands or what she has put into her mouth, something like that. So these small things, but these things help. Like these are the kind of things that we did, even while like when we were trying to potty train her. Like so we wanted to her to go into the bathroom and then use it and not like kind of do it wherever she was. So we kind of made a game around the whole thing, because it would be difficult for me to like kind of locate her and take her. So what we did was we made a game like we would like it would be like we made a race game, like how fast do we run and who reaches it first and things. And then at the end of it, we had this thing of clapping for her, like we'd give her good girl claps. And that became like she was so proud to get those good girl claps. Slowly this became, we were able to get her into the schedule. We didn't have to struggle too much. It was hardly like from the time we started to from the time we got her to do it by herself, into the bathroom was hardly a month or so. So these are not small things, but nevertheless they helped. And while talking about other issues, like, there were also things that, like once we go from the house to the outer space, we are not no longer inside the house and the baby starts going outside and you need to take it out to go to the park or maybe take the baby for a walk. Or in our case, I used to take her to the daycare. So again, there were things that people had warned me before, like, what if she runs away from you? What if she goes missing? Or how, what if suddenly you can't find her? So again, these were things that I had to work with on a, like a case to case basis and as and when it happens basis. So there were times like, when she would run away from me, like when I would take her out. But these are the places where, like I didn't feel ashamed to ask for help. So I would ask people around me, like, can you see where she is? Because she's playing hide and seek with me. So the people would help me to find her, like I could always get someone to help me to do those things with me. And then there were, and the whole thing of, like, when I've been taking her out and going around with her by myself, this has also kind of brought about a change in the environment for me. Because earlier, like, how this happens to most people with visual impairment is like, people see you but they don't come up and talk to you, whether it's your office
Right.
or wherever you are. So that used to be my experience even in my neighborhood. People would see me but they wouldn't come up and talk to me. But with the baby, like when I started going out and, like taking her to the park to play and things, initially, like, yeah, I did face the same situation where nobody would come up and I would be sitting all by myself and kind of like, attending to her, making sure that she is all right. And but what happened was, like, what's surprisingly happened of late is that because people have kind of seen me and, for quite some time looking after her, and we have kind of, the impression or the image has undergone a kind of a change, I should say. Because now it's like, do people do come up and they do talk to me. In fact, a person stopped me on my way some time back and they were like, we see you do this all the time and how do you do this, and I think that how had changed over there. Because initially the question was, how are you going to do it? And now the how is like, how do you manage to do all these things? So that how has changed, and I think that's a very significant change.
Right. Right. Um, and I think it's very important that you highlighted also, Anandi, about seeking help when you needed to and not feeling ashamed around it. I think I don't know how people imagine that a mother can raise the child all by herself. It's a very popular saying that it takes a village to raise a child, right? So we're technically not, all of us are not doing it alone, whoever is doing it. So there's some support, there's some navigation, there's some external help, there's some support. I, did it at any point, so just to also ask a question, did sort of the judgments or did sort of this come across as, and this can be for both of you, Jeeja, if you also wanted to respond, did at any point it come as a power imbalance between the two partners, saying that, okay, you must not be taking care, it must be your partner who's really supporting through all of this? And how did you navigate that, being a mother and a partner as well? Anandi, first maybe to you and then to Jeeja.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is an image that I have kind of thought, I think, for a very long time. Because generally people tend to imagine that, since I'm blind, people tend to imagine that I must not be doing anything around in my house, and it must be my husband who must be doing all the work. And this is an image that has been around for a very long time. And the funniest part is, like, I have tried my best, my best capacity to tell people, it's not so, and I do cook and I do these things and I, all that, but somehow that image hasn't really changed. And even now, that is, the perception is the same outside. Though my husband and I try our level best to, deflect it and say it's not so, and we each have our roles to play and we each have our, our work carved out for us, but somehow the perception hasn't changed much. So when within the disability community, people know that we can and we do look after ourselves and we are able to do whatever we want. But outside the disability community, the perception hasn't changed much more.
Right, right. Thank you, Anandi. And I think the same reflected, Jeeja, in your piece around decision making, but particularly around this If you can tell your thoughts, share your thoughts.
Particularly out of decision making, okay, about school and education. My husband and I, we decide together, but when it comes to the medical treatment, if she is unwell, taking her to the doctor, my husband doesn't trust me or, or, or my family members. He thinks only his family, his family can help. My family is good for nothing.
Sure.
I think when it comes to many of the decisions, we are able to take it together. But when it comes to medical decisions, especially when she's not well and she has to be taken to the doctor, then he has to support in the process, or he will have to take her to the doctor. And so there is an assumption uh, in his family about the fact that only his family can support and that mine is good for nothing.
Okay, and Jeeja, do you want to tell us a line of how do you and your partner negotiate this pressure? Because it somehow, we've seen, and Anandi, feel free to add if you wanted to, you've answered it partly. Just that it's often seen, and I don't know if it comes from media or media takes it from society. Often the partner is validized, particularly when the woman is disabled, right? So, and it gets really tricky at times because you're really, if both of you are also trying to deflect it, it somehow becomes very tricky and a point that we constantly need to negotiate, like with family, like with friends, like with colleagues, like with peers. We have to constantly negotiate. So if you, Jeeja or Anandi, want to share a little more on that, so that other disabled women, prospective mothers, mothers with a disability will all be able to hear how that particular piece has been.
Maybe it does. I mean, it does hurt. I won't hide it and say it doesn't. Even though we know that people, the perception, they're going by the general perception. But it still hurts when people say that, oh, your husband must be looking after the both of you. Or, how does your husband manage working and the office and looking after you and the housework. So such things, they do hurt. But what me and my husband, what we have devised is like a simple thing. Like we have made the whole thing into a kind of a humor. We're like, what she said, and then say the usually, like that. So
Right.
it's kind of, not at least, that kind of discomfort or the pain, or the feeling, you kind of try to understand that it's going to take people some time to change, and we
Right.
don't want to get hurt because of their
Right.
misconceptions or their that approach. So we just
Extremely.
kind of make it into our own, like an internal joke and say, oh yeah, what he said, and he said the same thing, what everyone else says, like that. So
Fantastic. So the material for comedy never ends.
yeah.
That's what the stand-up comedian in me wants to say, that the material for comedy never ends. Thank you, Anandi. I think it was really important to hear that, some of us, it's always believed, and such strong women on this call and the panel. And the idea is that, you are above all this. Yeah, if people speak, let them speak. Why are you bothering? But it does bother at some point, right? It does bother. It bothers when you're working and nobody sort of acknowledges, and people feel that you're a burden on your family. It bothers if they feel you're a burden on your partner. At any point when you're contributing and your contribution is dismissed, right? And it's often dismissed. It comes from a place of, oh, it doesn't exist, and then you have to build on it. And sometimes you're like, yes, I'm a burden. Let them take care of me. I need a glass of water. Can someone get me? It's just, it becomes like that, right? Like, it just, exaggerating on whatever support we need. I think I sometimes even do that. So, but Jeeja, please, over to you. If there's something particular, because I'm sure people here in relationships and in marriages, in relationships, in other kinds of relationships, and particularly parental relationships, will get to learn.
Yeah, they I think particularly married or activists like me or activists like us. Sometimes it is difficult when you have to compromise and what you believe.
Right.
And you know, but for the people of the family, you just keep quiet. The difference.
Right.
When you're married and when one of you is an activist, it is often very difficult to uh, have to compromise in some of these situations, and it can be very hard to to decide or to not react to what one of the family members are saying.
I think we'll open up for questions, and then, as closing comments, I would like to come to both of you, Jeeja and Anandi, to tell us about your mischievous daughters. I've heard stories because I've had the pleasure to chat with each of you individually, and how in the times of COVID, what helped, what didn't help, etc. But can we open up for some questions? And if someone wants to ask a question, this would be a good time to unmute. And if someone's already written in the chat, Srinidhi would please kindly read it out to us.
No questions
Okay.
in the chat, Nidhi. I was scrolling listening.
Yes, somebody just unmuted.
But there
Sorry,
is a hand.
somebody has raised their hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you please unmute them, or
Yeah,
can you tell
they
me
can
the
unmute.
name?
Kumar Rahul.
Okay. Rahul, could you please unmute yourself? Share your question, please, with us.
Can I say something? My name is Atul. My hand has been raised. Yeah.
Okay, Atul, while we're waiting for Rahul, if you can start, and then we'll move to Rahul.
It's the same person, I think, Nidhi. Sorry. Your name is showing as Rahul Kumar.
No.
Okay.
Mine should be showing as Atul only. Yeah. Or Atul Saifun, something like that. Anyway, I mean,
if you can ask a question. Yeah.
It has been a great conversation, actually. And Jeeja, I think we met some 2 decades back in a train. Wonderful to see how far you have traveled since then. Actually, as a person, as a father with disability, with blindness, I was just wondering, what is more difficult, being a person with disability or being women? And I mean, listening to the story of all of you, a poem came to my mind. It's not written by me, but I have internalized it sort of. And if you give me a permission, I can share it for a few seconds.
Yes.
Can I? Yeah.
Yes, if it's
So
brief,
this poem
absolutely.
reads, like, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment they scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Thank you. It's a poem called Invictus, and I think it was just coming to my mind when I was going through the stories of all of you. And thank you for this wonderful conversation, actually.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you. Anybody else, any questions or comments?
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks a lot for this wonderful
Could you please
session.
introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Pinky.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much. No words really for all of you whoever shared your experience and whoever has organized it. And I just have got married recently, and I was really wondering, like, how, first of all, how you guys have decided to be a mother. First thing, that is a very basic thing which I am not able to decide, because when we hear a lot of things about ourselves from others, which is always negative, we are coping up with all other things, and this is a very big responsibility which we are going to take, and it's not a small thing. So I'm not able to even reach there, that yes, I should go for it or not. But after seeing you guys, I just want to know from you guys, how did you guys even decide or take the decision of being a mother? What made you to do that?
Fantastic question, Pinky. Thank you so much for really that honesty and coming in with that question. Jeeja and Anandi, I would turn to both of you, and Anu, if you wanted to pitch in as well. Just the decision, Pinky's question around when there's so much of external external voices, and they're louder than your confidence or louder than everything else, and you're not able to even tap inside and see what you really want. How do you then decide? Should I call out Anandi if you want to go, and then we can go to Jeeja?
Yeah, we could do that, sure.
Yeah.
So for me, Pinky, it was a deep desire from within, because I always adored children, like even before, like much before, when I was younger and I was able to see, and I had lots of younger cousins growing up around me. So this was something that, like I kind of liked babies, and so when I was finally, when I decided to get married, and like, so this was something that I wanted to do at some point in time. I wanted to have a child at some point in time, though I hadn't decided when. But it was kind of in my head all the time, like, that I was going to kind of be a mother. I never thought of if or if not, but there's always the question was when, or like when would the time be right or something. And also when it comes to like, there were these big questions, like, how am I going to care for the child? Yeah, I agree, like that was a question. And like, as I said before, like, there's so many opinions thrust into my face, like, how can you do this, or how would you be able to manage that? And what if your child puts the finger in an electric socket, then what would you do? These are very scary scenarios that people kind of always very, like, always keep throwing at us, whether it's justified or not. And somewhere, like, it scares us. It does, because we know what the consequence of certain things or certain actions are going to be. And but the thing is, like, what I told myself when I was contemplating these questions was like, people really don't know what I'm capable of. That's the bottom line. They don't know what I'm capable of, and their opinions or and all their judgments are all based on what, to the extent of their perception of my situation, or their understanding of my abilities. It's not about what I know about myself, it's what they know about me. And all these fears are their fears and not my fears. Then they are throwing it at me. I'm not kind of picking it up. Okay. So I would try to analyze it. Like, I did do that. I did sit down and analyze and say, if this this was true, if this moment, if I had to face this, how would I do it? And at the same time, like you are working, I mean, we are all working women, and we have, like we have carved out this career for ourselves. How would you react in this particular situation? If you had to suddenly travel abroad, what would you do? Or if you had to, suddenly, if your train broke down, what would you do? Something like that, all these questions. Why do you want to go out? Why do you want to do so somewhere, yeah. So these things were, I mean, so I thought, I know it's about how, what, I can find the solutions to these questions. So let me go ahead. That's how I did.
Yeah, Ananti, but yeah, so that's where somewhere I am also really confident and bold, everything, but somewhere that feeling is there inside me that sorry, that really will I give a good life to my child, which my child deserves. Really will I put my child in I should not put my child in a situation where it feels uncomfortable or feel I don't know, there are so many negatives in my mind. So it's not about I will not be capable of taking care of it, but other aspects are disturbing a lot. So I don't know how to really, how you guys are dealing it with, and not sure.
Can I, Pinky? Sorry, Anandi, please go ahead. I'd just like to briefly
Yeah,
respond
so I
to
was
Pinky
just
as well.
thinking, like, if this is what you are dealing with right now, how is my child going to accept my condition? Is that kind of the question? Then I think, like, because your child, I mean, my child never judged me and never found me wanting. Okay, like we always found solutions to problems, and she never ever, I mean, till date, she has never ever. Of course, she understands that I'm visually impaired and I can't see, and she knows, she understands the issues that come with it. Okay, but that has never stopped her from accepting me as a mother. Okay, for her, I'm the best mother. I mean, children accept us like that. If you're asking me for that, children accept us entirely, completely. They are not judging, as far as, at least the tiny ones are not judging, and they're not asking questions. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And the older ones always ask questions. So, and they judge parents at some point or the other. It's totally fine.
I think. Yeah.
No, so Pinky, before we go to Jeeja, or let's go to Jeeja, and then I would like to briefly respond to you, just taking the liberty
Sure.
of being a host and speaking too much,
Sure.
and also just being a disabled woman who's also an activist. So let me just go to Jeeja for this response. Jeeja, if you could share your thoughts for Pinky and for other women like her. Is Jeeja on mute? There. Yes, Jeeja.
Really serious are there back of your mind, and you have to constantly negotiate with yourself, and so once you get over with your own fears, I think then you become comfort, comfortable dealing with this situation.
Yeah. You have to make peace with what you, and to constantly negotiate with yourself, and eventually, while negotiating with yourself, you will have to become comfortable with what you're making, decisions you're making.
Right. Thank you, Jeeja, and thank you, Anandi. I think, Pinky, just to raise a point here, I don't know what happened around your marriage, but I've been working in disability rights and gender for the past decade. And I've met many, many women with disabilities who, like Anandi said, were questioned for their careers, right? First, I mean, even I was questioned for my career, not by my family, but by the institution, saying, you cannot do this. It comes from a place of what they think you can do, right? And I remember this question that was asked. I was applying for a media school, and they said, media is visual. We are really sure you cannot do this. And everybody else will have to carry your baggage. And if you see the language and the understanding, that the continuous thing is that if you have a child, um, somebody else will have to take the burden, which is what I was told in an education institution, that if you come to this course, your classmates will be burdened. The second thing that I was told is I'm absolutely incapable because there's a lot of visual elements. How will I make a film? How will I design an ad campaign? How will I Photoshop things? How will I use other visual media and things like that, right? And they said, do you have answers to these? And I was very honest. I said, if I had answers to everything, I couldn't be applying to a course. I don't think any mother in this world has answers to how they're going to raise their child before they have a child. I think it's a learning curve that never ends. And I'm sure my mother, I'm 35, she will tell you the same even today, saying, I don't understand how to like really respond to Nidhi, right? There are some points. So I'm just trying to tell you, I'm not dismissing the real fear. I'm not dismissing the logistical difficulties. I'm not going to assure you, like I'm blind. If you're going to be a blind mother, you'll suddenly now be able to see your baby's expressions. No, you will not be able to see. But does that mean that you will not be able to work with the baby? I have my doubts, right? I just want to give an example, and probably that gives a perspective on, and our panelists have really, really kindly shared some of these, but really to give a very, very stark example with which I'll probably just come to the panelists for any closing comments, starting from Jeeja, then to Anandi, and then to Anu. I've written I've co-authored a website called sexualityandisability.org when I started working in the sector of disability and gender. Since then, conducted a lot of workshops and so on and so forth. And then Rising Flame came into existence. So it's just been a whole journey of what kind of labels, judgments, burdens, pressures, guilt, and shame is associated with being a disabled woman. Being a disabled woman who has an ambition, being a disabled woman who wants to then find a partner, get married, be in romance. Questions like if your partner can't see you and you can't visually respond, how will even the love grow? So I'm not sure, but many blind women have been asked this, right? Many women on wheelchairs have been asked, how are you going to satisfy your partner? And it's all okay in a culturally conservative country to just go up to a disabled woman and say, hey, what about your sex life, right? But very importantly, this whole pressure of being quote unquote not a good enough mother. And one day in my neighborhood, there was a woman with a young mother, and she was a non-disabled woman, a woman with a young child. Her child was 2 years old, and the child was very playful and musty-core and mischievous and everything. And the child jumped from the table. No mother has some 15 eyes or is not omnipresent or does not have some 24 arms and or a very long arm to like cross over rooms, etc. Right? So she was doing something in the kitchen or in her bedroom, and for 5 minutes she left the child alone. The child jumped from the dining table or on the dining table and had a very deep gash or a cut just above the child's eye, right? Near the eyebrow. So the eye just got saved. And she came out hearing the cries and saw the blood and got paralyzed. Like literally, she could not move. And then she broke down. Her family came, the neighbors came, somebody held her hand, somebody held the child's hand, a third person delivered first aid. There was a lot of love, support, and empathy towards that mother. Now, if you just imagine that this mother was blind, or this mother had limited mobility, or this mother had a locomotor disability, or this mother was deaf, or any other thing, or this mother had a phobia of blood. What do you think the neighbors would have reacted? What do you think the family would have done? Right? The stigmatized behavior tells us that she would first be blamed, saying, listen, it's your lack, and that's why the child got hurt. And this is the framework from where we come, and that's why it was very important for us to bring Jeeja, Anandi, Anu here to say that each person has a different experience of being a mother. No two experiences are the same. We can learn from each other. And I think listening to people who say, hey, this might be a challenge. Let's think of a solution with you. Rather than, hey, do you even know what are the challenges? All of this will stop you from being a quote unquote good mother. I think those are the conversations that we don't have enough. And the media doesn't help, the advertisements don't help, the films don't help, the directors of films don't help, and so on. So thank you so much. It's your question really brought out more vulnerability, more honesty, and more information around it's a balance, and where we find our own balance, and what our heart desires is extremely important. With that, I'll just come to all three of you in the order that I said, Jeeja, Anandi, and then Anu, for last comments, just talking about the last experiences around COVID or otherwise, just to share with us some moments to close this. Jeeja?
Last 1 year has been really tough for everyone. Especially when you have a child, 3-year-old child in the house who cannot go out, who cannot go to play, who is having online classes, and you don't know how to cope with it. It's a very strange situation.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Right.
Sorry, Jeeja.
Water break.
For the last 1 year, it has been very difficult for all of us everywhere, especially at home when you have a 3-year-old child who cannot go out to play, who cannot, whose school is remote, who cannot, who has to be entertained at home. These are very, very challenging times, and it has been very strange to cope with this situation.
I feel that she told me, Mama, I want to go to the park. I felt so sorry. No, darling. Now the park are shut. You cannot go. But I really felt horrible telling this to my child.
When my child came up to me and said, Mama, I would like to go to the park. And I said, I had to tell her, no, the parks are, you cannot go to the park because the parks are closed, are shut. So I felt very bad having to tell the child
Right. I think, Jeeja, that's been really the situation with a lot of mothers. And like you're saying, I think it brings home the whole experience that it's been tough for everyone. And mothers living with disabilities, it's not been different because children don't stop being children because there's a pandemic. So thank you for that, Jeeja. Sorry, did you want to add something? Did I cut you off, Jeeja? Sorry, I'm on the microphone. No, okay, great. Anandi?
Yeah, Nidhi. So I'm
Can you please tell the story when she's really mischievous? The one you shared yesterday. I think that'll be a fantastic story to end with.
In fact, she asked me today in the morning, Mama, are you going to go on the program and tell everybody how naughty I was?
I'm saving this recording for when she grows up.
I told her, no, I won't tell them anything that you did. And she said, that's a secret between you and me, right? And Papa. I said, yes. Whatever you do in the house is a secret between you, me, and Papa. I will not tell anyone about it.
Oh, so your hands are tied. Okay.
She's very protective about her privacy, even though she's just 5 years old.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so I would say something different and not about what she does at home, especially because you're saying her. Huh. Um, what I thought would be, I mean, my concluding thoughts or closing thoughts were like, it's not about what people say, it's more about at the very end, it's just between you and your baby. I mean, like many people believe that like I can't cook, even though I mean I tried telling him and I stopped telling him now. But my daughter knows that I cook, and for me, that's the most important thing because she can see me cooking at home, and it's the most fulfilling moment when she says, "Can I have some more?" Because I feel fulfilled as a mother when like when she comes back and says, "I want more of this because I like this." Or at night she says, like she kind of puts her arms around my neck and says, "Don't go, stay with me." And I don't know, I'll be scared if you go away. Or when the house is full of people, even then she's speaking out and what is she comes to me saying,
Sorry, Anandi, we can't hear you at all. Sorry.
somebody's audio. Yep.
Yeah.
So I was saying,
Yeah, we heard till when the house is full of people, she still seeks you out.
yeah, so see, she still seeks me out if she wants something. She'll come to me and say, "I want this and this and thing." Or if she wants permission to do something, she'll say, "Mama, can I do this?" She won't go to anybody else. And that it kind of, that's enough for me, as a mother, that my child comes to me and and I'm able to fulfill her requirements as a mother. No matter what the people think, no matter what people say, you know that doesn't validate me. What happens between us validates what I do and say.
Is Anu still here? Thank you,
Yeah,
Anandi, for the response. Anu, if you wanted to share any last thoughts.
yeah. I mean, first, like I found one thing I found particularly striking with both Jeeja and Anandi's uh, experiences was that, and also with response to that question from Pinky, is that in a lot of ways, sometimes through trial and error, sometimes we plan beforehand, we find ways to navigate, our relationships with our kids, and they find their own ways to navigate their relationships and their connection with us, how to communicate with us. It's part of us. It's not always going to be an easy process, but it's um, it's actually a process that takes time, can be difficult sometimes, but eventually it does result in us being able to navigate our relationship, being able to figure out how to understand each other. you know so I found that particularly striking, especially when listening to Jeeja and Anandi. With regards to COVID, um, Veronica is actually a very outdoorsy kid. I remember 2 years ago, we had gone for a trip to Kerala to meet my parents, and she went wild basically because there's a garden there, there is a jungle just close by, where peacocks come and stuff like that, and she was just in her element. She was happy. And I remember around that time, she must have been 4 years old or something, and she's on the spectrum. She's autistic, so she did struggle a little bit with speech, with developing speech, and uh, she actually had a lot of progress when she came back from Kerala. After being outdoors and experiencing things there and stuff like that. She when we came back to Mumbai, she was suddenly a lot more talkative. And I remember and I remembered this especially when COVID began and when the lockdown started, because she kept looking outside at the at the compound, wondering when she could go to the playground, wondering when she could go to a park, just wanting to go outside, even if it's for a walk, even if it's to chase cats. She loves cats. So you know it was very difficult for her. Like for the first few months, she was like, the mummy, mummy, make COVID disappear.
I can assure you, I've shared my age a couple of times, but still I'm 35 and I still ask this question sometimes when I'm irritated to my mom, saying, "Mom, can you not make this COVID disappear?" So as whatever it sounds, but I think all of us turn to our mothers at different ages and sometimes turn to them, sometimes don't, but may turn to our mothers and say, "Hello, can you please solve this problem for us in life?" And they cannot, and we know that. It's fine. So thank you so much, all three of you. I'm really sorry. I think Shobha's hand was up and so were many others. We've just had a very interesting conversation, and so we didn't have a lot of time to take up a lot of questions. We still would like to request people in the who are the participants to drop their email IDs here or write to us at team@risingflame.org. So TEAM@risingflame, RISINGFLAME.org, with any queries for being, alerted for future events. If you see, this one was an open event, so we don't really have your registration details. If you would like to join our mailing list or be added or alerted for future events, which will happen every 2 months. Our event in March was about women with disabilities and education. In May, it's about women, disabled women who are mothers and what Mother's Day and the whole experience means to them. And we'll be soon again with you in 2 months, discussing yet again another interesting topic, reflecting together and challenging norms and normativity. Thank you so much, Shabina, for interpreting. Thanks once again to the entire Rising Flame team for making this event possible. And thank you, Anu. Thank you, Jeeja. And thank you, Anandi, for coming here and for your honesty, vulnerability, for sharing your joy and your experiences with us. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and hope this, thank you. I hope this hour and a half has been some distance from all the crumbling situation around us. Thank you. Stay safe. Oh, Anandi, your daughter's here, is it?
So my not
or Jeeja's daughter?
his daughter.
Jeeja's daughter. Hello. Hi. We were just speaking about you. Mama was telling all good things about you. Thanks a ton. Thank you, everyone. We're just going to end the meeting so that we're not all hanging around here. And we'll end the
Thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe and click the bell button for updates. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or visit our website to know more about our work. Links in the description.